Hi there. Today we're going to talk about 5 things many Southern Oregon home buyers wish they did before they bought their home. This is part 1. There'll probably be a part 2 and 3. So here we go. Number 1, beware of homes that were flipped. They may seem nice and new on the outside, but some of them, not all of them, were thrown together in a fast as possible manner, and the seller was using low quality materials, covering things up. So don't be fooled just because it looks beautiful on the outside and the appearance. Still need to get the inspection done, making sure that the quality of work was to your satisfaction. A lot of times there's a flipper who buys a home with good intentions and then finds out the hard way that there are additional repairs that need to be done that they weren't aware of. You start tearing out a wall, pretty soon it's eating their profit, and then they start to cover things up because otherwise they'd be in the hole financially. So just be aware of that. Okay, number 2. This is especially something to be aware of in older country homes. Septic tanks. Try to get a septic tank inspection done so you can avoid costly repairs in the future. You want to find out when was the tank last pumped, and you want to verify that. Normally, tanks should be pumped every 3 to 5 years, depending on the usage. If you have an old couple living there, they're going to have very low usage. Wouldn't be too much of a concern, but you still should have it checked out. You can verify when it was pumped. You can ask the seller for a receipt or find out which company did the pumping and call them up and verify. If you can, try to find out how many people live in the home. If it's a very large family, that's heavy usage. Another thing you can do is inspect the drain field, see if it's really soggy on the surface. If that's the case, that could be a red flag. So just be aware of that when dealing with septic tanks. Okay, number 3, make sure in your sales agreement you have a 2 to 3 day walkthrough inspection before the closing date, even if the house is vacant. Here's why. You initially go look at a home, you like it, maybe you look at it twice just to make sure, you write up a contract, and everything's a go. The inspection was done, appraisal was done. Now you want to make sure that everything is the way you initially seen it, and make sure if there is an agreement with the seller to leave something like an appliance or a fixture, that it's still there. And even if it's vacant, you never know if there was some damage, a pipe broke, or someone broke in. So you want to go and look at it 2 or 3 days before the closing, just to make sure everything's in order. Now, and if we do find an issue, then we have to contact the seller and see what can be done. Now, keep in time, there's a time frame here. There's a lot of pressure on time. You probably signed loan documents. Everything's a go. So you don't really want to delay the closing. And so it's a delicate situation. Depending on the issue, there's many ways to handle this. Okay, the next one, if you're a first-time buyer, should you buy a starter home or a dream home? So a lot of times, realtors try to convince you, buy that dream home, and okay, go ahead. If you have the budget and the resources and you're not maxed out, in other words, you should have some money left in the bank, okay, for a rainy day. And if not, build that up as fast as possible. Otherwise, it'd be better to start with a less expensive, smaller starter home and gradually build up equity and sell it 3, 4, 5 years down the road. Then you can buy your dream home. I've had a couple where they wanted to buy their dream home and they had the resources, except when I found out that the husband was in between jobs and there was a new job coming up in a couple of months within his profession, but it wasn't solid yet. It wasn't set in yet. So I recommended not to take that chance, because if something goes wrong and that job did not come in, then they're going to be in a financial pickle. And they took that advice. Now, of course, with all my clients, they have the last say, so they make the final decision. I just make recommendations. In that case, it worked out. They bought a smaller home. They didn't need the third bedroom. It was a 2-bedroom. They improved it over time, mainly cosmetic. 3 or 4 years later, I can't recall, sold it, had a nice equity in there, and used that as a large down payment on their dream home. So keep that in mind. Last but not least, neighbors. Trying to find out a little bit about your neighbors and the neighborhood. I recommend going there in the evening, driving around when everybody's home, and seeing what the neighborhood looks like, how it's, if there's some red flags. I've had clients go to the neighbors, introduce themselves, and telling them they're thinking about buying the home, and they'd like to know what their opinion is about the neighborhood and get a feel for everything. Now, keep in mind, not everything is the way it appears. For instance, in my home, my next door neighbor has 4 cars and other recreational vehicles parked in his driveway. So it looks like there's a ton of people living there. There's only himself and a roommate. And on first impressions, you would think, well, that's a red flag. But really, I never hear from the guy. I say hello, he says hello back, and nothing ever goes on. He takes his vehicles, he leaves. It's really quiet. So keep in mind, don't just assume if there's something to that effect with vehicles, in some stages of repair. That's just an eyesore, but maybe the neighbor is not a sore. And so keep that in mind when looking at this issue. Be open to it, investigate further, don't assume, but you do want to look into it because you could be living with the neighbor from hell. That's it for today. Just a quick introduction. My name is Bruno Skopinich. I've been active in the real estate and mortgage profession for over 29 years, so I have a lot of knowledge about both of these industries really well. If you want a free consultation, I'm open to giving you any information, sharing information. If you are working with someone else, no problem, and you want a second opinion, I'll gladly give it to you with no obligation. Feel free to call me. There's my number. Thank you very much. Until next time, bye.